Hello, YouTube. I am so grateful for you guys tuning in and listening to my musings on this journey of mine as I become an amputee. I have some, I don't know, cool to me at least, things that have happened in the past 2 weeks, I guess, that I'd like to update you on. I have a big carpenter bee that's over here buzzing, so you might wind up hearing him. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about what happened this weekend that was so amazing, and to give my friends some shout outs for their just incredible help. But also to give some really cool information that I found out this weekend that might be helpful to others, but is definitely really helpful to me. But first, on to the shout outs. This weekend, a couple of my friends came, Lisa and Lisa, so the Lisa squared. One of them we call by a different nickname so that we can keep them straight. But Lisa and Lisa came this weekend along with my friend Karen, and then I have my housemate Sinette, as well as my wonderful and amazing husband Noel. And together as a team, they accomplished one of my wish lists. And on this wish list, I had asked for my back porch to be set up so that I could use it as a recovery area after the surgery, so that I'm not, stuck on the futon or in a recovery room. Now, what we're doing is we are bringing in a futon, getting in a nice pad cover for it, and putting it in my current studio, because right now, instead of doing defense work, which I no longer can do as from all these injuries, I've had to become an atelier, which is not a bad gig. It lets me work from home. It lets me create. And I frankly just love making people happy when they try on my clothes, and it puts a big smile on their face. So it's a great job. But it's also not my passion. My passion is defense work. I do cultural intelligence, and I like being an advisor that helps inform decision making, especially when it might help soldiers not shoot, and it might help decrease tensions in an area of critical warfare. So that's my passion, doing intelligence. However, this job has also been really fantastic and has allowed me to be very creative and help support the family, especially when I can't walk a lot of the time. So we're going to use my studio as my recovery room because it's on the first level. And right outside of that is my back porch that so far over the past winter has been really cluttered. So what they did for me was they cleaned it up. It still needs a little bit to go. Like, pollen right now is really bad here in Virginia, so everything is covered in pollen. But it now has a nice little couch. It has my rocking chair out. I have my current glider that I'm on. And there's just, my lanterns are out now. I also had a major accident this winter during Christmas where all my lanterns fell and a good portion of them broke. So one of my friends actually rebuilt several of my lanterns, and what we will do is hang them all over the ceiling of the back porch and around the areas that, the areas that we can put them up, because some of this needs to be replaced, but otherwise we have them kind of sitting right here. But we'll put them all around, and then when you light them up, it creates this really beautiful area. And it's so nice to sit in, and it's nice to be able to sit with family. And this is so critical for mental health during a recovery process, because what often happens, and this is not just with me, but it's actually a documented thing that occurs, is that surgical depression becomes very real. Now, for me, it happens typically during this second week, after a lot of the initial pain meds wear off and you're trying to move, but you really, it's really painful to move. So during that second week is usually when the questioning happens. Why me? What did I do? Oh my gosh, why did I do this? Did it help? Did I come into this lightly? All those questions that happen that are going to be amplified with an amputation. So what we are trying to do is mitigate these potential problems and to put into place things that will help decrease the depression or eliminate it altogether if possible. Fingers crossed. But to eliminate them as much as we possibly can, and to help keep this a very positive and hopeful environment as I heal. Now, there's a lot of exercises and things that I want to be able to do, and I'm not exactly sure during the healing process when I'll be able to start them. but some of them I know right now I can't do because I have fibromyalgia and RA, which affects my wrists. So things like sit-ups and push-ups, things like that are really, really difficult for me. So we're also looking at different exercises that I can do because unlike other amputees that I have spoken with, I am coming into this after a decade of being largely inactive, where I used to be incredibly active. And so as a result, I have gained some weight. Now, I also had 2 children during this time. One of them broke my hip, my pelvis, not my hip. So there's a lot of healing that I had to do. And so going to the gym and cranking it like I used to has just kind of been out of the question. So I'm coming into it wearing more pounds than I used to and having to heal also my right hip, which has bore the brunt of all of the weight while I've had to take this, the injury. So my left leg has not been able to be functional. And so I've had to put all that weight onto my right leg. And as a result, I have created a bursa in my hip, which is just insanely painful. I mean, at times it's more painful than my left leg. And I can only do so many cortisone shots before it actually will damage the hip altogether. So there's exercises that I'm going to need to do, but I'm not sure yet exactly what I can do, or I may not have the knowledge necessarily how to fix it. So what I'm looking to do is find a physical trainer who can come to the house and who's willing to work with me to help build and strengthen the leg and also help me during recovery, but also to help keep me mentally motivated so that I will be back in that, mind game, the whole mental process of wanting to work out and get strong again. I loved it when I used to work out all the time. I enjoyed being fit. I loved being strong. It's part of a mentality that keeps you very positive and optimistic, and not being able to do that has increased the depression. So again, it's part of the mitigation strategy, but I'm not a physical trainer myself, and I don't want to do these things and potentially injure myself further. So that's why I'm looking for someone who can do this, who is a professional, who knows more about therapy for injuries. So that's one of our goals. The other goal is to keep an environment open that remains positive and that helps keep me in a framework that will mitigate the depression. Now, I am super excited about this right now. I am so stoked to be having my leg taken. It's really, really hard to say that, but it's the truth because this represents hope for a future of activity again. I've spent the last decade not being able to participate in a lot of family activities. Vacations had to be worked around whether or not I was feeling good enough to be able to walk. I even went to, Orlando with my family, and we had to have a wheelchair on standby, which, was really awful, and people stare at you and it's really hard, especially when doing rides. And it's awkward, and it takes away some of the joy of family vacations. But at least we were able to do that vacation. Before, it was just off the table entirely. So there's been a lot of changes and things that we are looking hopeful towards being able to do with a prosthetic. And we know as a family that this is going to be a challenge and difficult, but I'm up for the challenge. And I am really excited about what the future may hold. Now, that being said, this weekend also was amazing because one of my friends from church introduced me to a former member of our congregation who just so happens to be a medal-winning Paralympian. This is Joey Pleben. Now, Joey, at the early age of 21, he was diagnosed with some issues that led to a change in his life at the age of 21, 22, where he opted to have his lower leg, left leg, so same place, to be removed so that he could have a better quality of life, which is the same goal that I have. He does snowboarding, he was wakeboarding, he does all kinds of really crazy activities, and all of this was taken off the table for him, and of course that leads to the same type of depression. So I was introduced, and I was able to have a really great conversation with Joey this week, where we have plans to meet up so that me and my husband will get the chance to meet them Noel will be able to talk with his wife and get answers to any questions that he might have right now about what recovery is like, what living with an amputee is like, etc., etc. And then my children will be able to meet them, because my daughter currently wants to be able to talk with someone who has gone through this prior to seeing my leg taken, so that she is not shocked or scared, I guess. Like right now, she seems totally fine and she thinks that she's fine, but she still is very curious. And so she would like to be able to meet with him and ask any questions that come up so that she's prepared. And he has been gracious enough to not only offer this, but to be willing to do it. So we're excited about that. Now, after his amputation, he was able to heal. And although there were some issues that came up, he is now back to doing snowboarding for a Paralympic team. He's going to represent the United States in the 2022 Paralympics. So we're rooting for him. But he was also able to get back to diving. And being able to hear this was such an exciting thing for me, because with this leg injury, I have not been able to even swim. What happens when I swim is that my leg keeps trying to move, my ankle keeps trying to move. And it causes such extreme pain that it makes it so that I just can't do the activity. So what I wind up doing in a pool is walking. So of course, if you don't use a skill, you lose it. So my swimming skills have decreased and I don't get much joy out of swimming. So the other thing that's been taken away entirely is diving. So I have not been able to dive in several years. And diving is one of the greatest joys for me. There's such a peace once you break the barrier of the water and submerge. And underneath the water is just this amazing world. And it's quiet, but yet full of life. And there's just nothing like it. And to not be able to dive when it was such a joy for me, it's been just awful. So to hear from him that he dives, and he dives without a prosthetic, is just incredible. And I am so excited. I actually started crying when he said this, because it just represents such a huge thing that I want to be able to do, and to know that it is possible again is just awesome. So that was great to hear. But the other thing is that he was able to provide me with some information medically that is critical for me to know. Part of that is the knowledge of being or becoming very close to your prosthetist. Right now, we're at a stage where I've been given names of prosthetists who are in my insurance group, so they're in coverage. But we haven't been able to contact them yet. So I need to do that. And he explained how important it is, because as he describes it, it's like a marriage or a best friendship. You have to be able to communicate very strongly with your prosthetist about every little thing that's happening with your legs, so that fittings can go smoothly, so that skin is not compromised, so that you are reaching the goals that you have. Because a prosthetist can build your leg specifically to your needs. And one of the things that I'm actually quite fearful of is that insurance is going to limit my activity because it'll be covered or not covered. And right now, finances are a huge concern, because all of these medical procedures have really hurt my family. I haven't been able to work very much, except for, starting my own business, but it certainly isn't a contractor salary. And the insurance has changed a lot. And so a lot of things are not covered. And so we've had to bear that burden. The other thing that he talked about, which is very important for anyone who is looking at having this procedure done, is that there is a procedure called the ERTL. ERTL is the acronym. And it is a type of procedure which I was interested in hearing about, especially because I do come from an educational background of being an osteologist and physical anthropologist. So what this procedure does is it takes the tibia, which is your lower leg bone, the bigger of the two, and it makes it shorter than the fibula. And then what they do is they take wedges out of the fibula and curve it on top of the tibia and then bolt it down. And it creates, once it's fused, a U shape at the end of your stump, so that you have a much stronger leg and more support for wanting to do activities. So this is something I'm going to look into and talk to my doctor about, but it's just not something that was on my radar, prior to speaking with Joey Plieben. The other thing that he talked about was a new procedure that he was able to participate in the experimental trials for. And now it is, for me, is something that has been well documented. The literature is out, and there are specialists now who do this procedure, which is called the TMR. And what it does is it takes the two different types of nerve bundles in our body and it fuses them together. And so what happens for phantom nerve pain is that when your nerve bundles start to fire, they actually are firing into each other, and it cancels the nerve conduction out, which means that your phantom nerve pain can be either eliminated or virtually eliminated. That is huge for anybody who is facing any type of amputation. So look into it. The acronym is TMR, and it is specifically for phantom nerve pain. And then the other procedure is the bone procedure called ERTL. So those are two things that I have homework to work on, and that I will be contacting my doctor about and also talking to insurance about. But I would not have known about this had I not been introduced to Mr. Plieben, had my friend not introduced me to him, had my other friends not reached out. And all of this, I think, is, again, just a testament to my friendship, to the people that I know, but also to a higher power that is certainly looking out and making these connections for us. Again, my faith plays a huge role in this, but also during all of this, my faith has taken it's gone through a different season, and that has been a challenge because my faith took a hit. And, you ask a lot of whys. I have seen miracles occur before my very eyes. I've prayed for other people. I have seen healing happen literally in front of me, but it never happened for me. And what I had to realize is that we were asking for the wrong thing. I was asking for healing and for restoration of my leg. And what I should have been asking for is what was wanted. Like, what is the process? What is needed to happen? And the answer has been that it has to go. That is a very clear thing that came through, prayer, contemplation, and speaking directly with, with God, which is my faith. Your faith is your journey, but my particular faith keeps me strong. And once I knew that the amputation was necessary, the next step was to ask for doors to be opened. And that happened very quick. I mean, literally within a week, we had an answer and a surgical date. So to go through this faith journey where there's been, valleys and mountains has been interesting, but all of this keeps my faith also building and my relationship much stronger. This is not something I really open up to a lot of people about, but if you do know me, you know that faith and my journey with God is something that's very strong to me and my family. But that's about where I'm going to, end right here in talking to the public about it. If you want to hear more or ask questions about it, I'm more than happy to speak about it, but it's not for everybody. That being said, I'm really excited about everything that's happened. I cannot wait to have this done and go through this process, although I know it's going to be hard and it's going to be painful. But this all represents a huge journey for me that will end in hopeful outcomes, positive outcomes that, in my opinion, and my hope, will lead to an active lifestyle again, where I will be able to not only keep up with my kids, but give my kids a run for their money, because right now they have never seen mom active and they don't know me to be active, and they have never seen me be able to do the things that I used to do. So this is going to be really exciting to be able to keep up with them, especially since sometimes they like to pick on me about it. So I can't wait to be able to chase after them. I will be posting a few more posts. A lot of what I want to talk about is going to touch upon some of the legal information that has come out of this. And then, of course, I'll be walking through just some of the preparation for the surgery, which is 2 weeks away, and some of the things that we would like to do. And then, of course, I'll, eventually start posting the process. If you have any questions or any comments or even any suggestions, things that you'd like to hear, that would be great if you would put it in the comments for me, especially since some of this information that I have and some of the things that I'm going through very specifically affects veterans. And it's a process that I've had to go through, a journey that I've had to experience that is directly affected to time in Iraq. But there's also a lot of really cool things that came from that and a lot of really neat stories. So I'd love to hear from you if you have anything that you'd like to hear from. Thank you for tuning in. This is mostly for my friends and family, but I am always excited to meet new people. And I'm really happy if any of this winds up helping anyone out, even just a little bit. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll see you very soon.